Hello. Well, we've got a new coach. Well, not officially. Reports say we have a new head coach. It seems like they're going to have a new coach. Oh, what the hell with it. They're going to have a new head coach. It is Bruce Cassidy, the former head coach of the Boston Bruins, who have made the playoffs every year since I've been alive, it feels like, have constantly been in the mix as one of the best teams in the league, have underperformed many of the last few seasons, including this very last one. Oh, did the Golden Knights actually send out a thing? Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay, yeah. Oh, thanks. Look at me not paying attention. The Golden Knights officially have a new head coach. Way to go, me, paying attention. Okay, so let's talk about Bruce Cassidy. Who is Bruce Cassidy? What is Bruce Cassidy going to do for this team? Let's start with this. The biggest thing for me, and I said this before all of this went down, whether it was Trotz or Cassidy or Tocchet or whoever else it could have possibly been, whoever it was going to be, I felt kind of similar no matter which direction they had gone, which was effectively that we were probably looking at, I don't want to say it's fully a lateral move, but it's not something that I think is going to change the franchise. And the main reason I don't feel like it's going to change the franchise is because when you go from what was a top 10 coach in Gallant to another top 10 coach in DeBoer to getting rid of that top 10 coach, I think, it is hard to replace them with a top 10 coach. Good news is the Golden Knights did that. So in that way, it's certainly a positive situation for the Golden Knights in that this is certainly not a step back. That is very good. That is something we really wanted to see. I'm definitely happy to see that. That's good. By the way, if anybody can read the press release for me, see if the press conference is coming up today or tomorrow. I'm hoping it's tomorrow. I don't see it in there. So yeah, if somebody can read that, that would be helpful to let me know when that's happening. Hopefully it's not like in 5 minutes and I have to leave. But so in that respect, like it does feel very similar to where they were. Like you have DeBoer, you had Gallant, you made these moves because you felt like you needed a different voice in the locker room. Not a ton changed. They've been successful through all of it. I expect that to continue. I just didn't see really a path in any of the group of coaches that we were looking at to really change what was going on. And I don't think that this necessarily does it. Now, you can view that multiple different ways. And today, to be honest, I kind of view it in a positive light in that I wasn't 100% sure they were going to replace their top 10 coach with another top 10 coach. So to be able to do that means they're probably going to be in a position where this window is going to continue. Now, we can have disagreements about where they are in that window or how exactly open the window is or, how much further they need to go or whatever. But the good news is it doesn't seem like they're in any situation to restart. I don't think that was ever going to happen, but had they missed out on 3 or 4 of these guys and had to reach for somebody and been in a situation where they hired someone absolutely not as good as Pete DeBoer, which did not happen here, maybe we're in a little bit of a different situation. But the biggest issue that I look at with this is that I don't see a huge difference with what they've signed here. Like, I don't see a big difference between Pete DeBoer and Bruce Cassidy. The systems are different. I'll get into all the systems. I've done enough research over the course of, thank you, Lita, for letting me know there's no time of the presser announced yet. I think that I've done what I was saying was I've done enough research on what the systems were because I've had a feeling it was going to be Cassidy. I got tipped some information a little while back that he was in and around Vegas for a little while there. I think it was last week. So I've been kind of researching this, assuming this was going to happen. And the biggest piece for me throughout all of it has been, I feel like he's Pete. Like, I feel like a lot of what this guy is DeBoer. Some of the issues that he had in Boston were some of the same issues that he had here. And one of those main issues is the style. Now, I am very excited about the fact that I've read and listened to a lot of Bruce Cassidy over the course of the last week. And what excites me about him in a big way is that he's bluntly honest, and that there are a lot of different times where he will specifically say things that he probably shouldn't say after games, in press conferences, on off days, postseason, whatever, that are like, wow, I can't believe he actually just went ahead and said that. And that excites me, because that gives us a little bit more information about what are some of the things that were not working or that are not working, and some of the players that he expects to step up. I didn't really feel like we ever got that from DeBoer really much at all. There were times a little bit with Leonard towards the end of the season. We got it every once in a while, but for the most part, I thought he was pretty close to the vest and was always kind of hiding behind a message that he wanted to send his players. I think this is going to be a little bit different. And in that respect, I'm really excited for that. I'm also excited to see how the team adapts to that. You know, different players that this team has, how are they going to adapt to a little bit more of a bluntly honest style, a style that he has always said, I've told the players this before I ever tell the media this. There's been some issues with that. It's probably, and I would make the argument, the number one reason why he was let go from Boston was there was just a rubbing of the wrong way with players over the course of time. That's kind of what we're coming off of here. I don't think that was fully the only reason why DeBoer got let go, but I think it definitely was a piece of it. So that in and of itself starts with being similar in regards to their history. Long time of being successful, long time of being in the playoffs, never having fully gotten over the hump. Now, Cassidy has been this much closer than DeBoer ever had been. He was one game away, and it was a pretty close game, if I remember right. I was at Pizza Rock watching that game, the Game 7, Boston and St. Louis. I remember St. Louis being the better team in the game, but Boston could have very well won that game. They were one game away. That's closer than Pete DeBoer had ever been. That's closer than Gerard Gallant had ever been. That's closer than Kelly McCrimmon has ever been. That's closer than George McPhee has ever been. So again, that is in many ways a slight step forward. However, it is not getting to the mountaintop. So in many ways, it is similar to the hiring of Gallant, the hiring of DeBoer, in that this is a good coach who is a retread, who we don't have to worry a lot about what is it going to be. Are we going to get some sort of inexperience here? Is this going to end up going down in flames? But we also don't have, is this the next hockey savant? Like, there is no way we're going to get a guy here in Cassidy that's going to come in and just light the world on fire and everyone realize, wow, that's been the greatest coach in the history of the NHL. We just didn't know it. That's not what we're getting here. That doesn't mean he can't win a Stanley Cup. Like, I don't think Craig Berube is that. He won a Stanley Cup. I'm not so sure some of these other guys in the past that have won Stanley Cups. I think John Cooper might be. I think Barry Trotz might be. I think Joel Quenneville, before all the shit went down, probably was. There are some guys. I don't think the Golden Knights are getting that. But again, that doesn't mean they can't win. It just a little bit feels like they hired the same guy. And then there's the issue of some of those bluntly honest comments that had come up over the course of the last 2 seasons were mostly where the articles and interviews that I was reading from were. They sounded really similar. Like, let me read you this one. This is after the Carolina series, which was about a month ago, not that long ago. Maybe it's a month and a half ago. They lost to Carolina, and this is what Bruce Cassidy said. We need to find more ways to generate offense. Is it the personnel in place to do that, or are we just playing the wrong way? Do we need to sacrifice defense, what we're really good at, to generate some more offense? We have to consider it. That's definitely a possibility. Are there more players that can give us more? Always. There are always more players. Like, that's what we heard. You go back and, like, I have all these notes from this. There was this article, and I'll share it at some point on The Athletic, really good article about kind of there being a little bit of a disconnect between the front office in Boston and Cassidy. And mainly the reason was Cassidy needed guys that would go to the front of the goal. He wanted guys that were going to the goal to clean up rebounds. The big part of his system offensively is let's get pucks on net and then let's find a way to win the rebounds. And if the players aren't doing that, he said something along the lines of, well, the message just isn't getting through and I'm going to have to do a different job of getting that through. Well, that's a problem we've had here before as well. Like, a lot of this sounded similar. Now, I understand, and it's important to note, and it will never change, that pretty much every hockey coach sounds the exact same way when they lose games. You can watch Gerard Gallant after they just lost that game. You can watch any hockey coach after they lose games. You hear certain similar things. We need to be harder to play against. We didn't have the right energy, whatever you want, however you want to put it. There's a million different cliches they use, but these ones have been really, really similar. And that is concerning to me. However, here are the positives. One of the number one positives I can give you is that special teams is a Bruce Cassidy item. He is tremendous at it. Let me just read some power play percentages over the course of the last 5 years. 21.2, 21.9, 25.2, 25.9, 23.6. All were above the league average in that season. That is obviously a huge step for the Golden Knights that I think will be massive in helping them get over the hump or at least head back in the right direction next season. But it's not just power play. As I posted a little while back, that quote from John Cooper saying you can live with an okay to not even very good power play as long as your penalty kill is good. These are Bruce Cassidy's penalty kill numbers: 81.3, 86, 84.2, 79.9, 83.7. If you take every single one of his seasons, in all of them, he's over 100% when you add them both up together, something the Golden Knights were not this season and have not been in the past and definitely have not been in the postseason. If you take all five seasons, penalty kill and power play, 1 out of the 10 were under the league average. That was 18-19, the season they went to the Stanley Cup final. They were 79.9% penalty killing, and the league average was like a fraction above that. He's very good on special teams. It is important to note that they had some excellent players on special teams. Marchand, Bergeron, both spectacular penalty killers. McAvoy is an awesome power play guy. Pasternak's an awesome power play guy. Like, they have them. But the Golden Knights have some of that. I don't think talent's going to be an issue here. I don't think we're in a situation where you're going to sit there and say, well, they're void of talent. I don't really feel that way. But I do think that it is going to depend on how this system goes. I'm going to have to dive a little bit into how they ran their power play and see how different it is from what the Golden Knights were doing. And we'll get into that. As far as systems, here's kind of the run through of the systems. I'll start in the offensive zone. Obviously, that's the place where I think most of us are the most concerned with what's going to change for the Golden Knights. I do think you're going to see a slight difference in how they're going to play. The reliance is going to be a lot less on getting shots from the point. I don't think you're going to see as many dump-ins. He does not like to dump the puck in. He would prefer that the players carry the puck in. And in many ways, actually, he's okay with resetting in the neutral zone and going all the way back towards your own goal, behind the goal if you have to, and resetting and have another breakout if that one was not there, instead of just getting to the red line and throwing the puck in. I like that. I like having more possession of the puck, more controlled entries, and trying to create chances immediately upon that entry before the defense is set up. That's certainly something Cassidy has had success in doing. That is something that I think we're going to see more of. However, one of the parts that I do think that is going to be similar is that I do think they're going to continue to be a high shot volume team. And I think they're going to be continually reliant on getting rush chances and then getting rebound chances, as opposed to tricky, fancy, creative plays that use active defensemen, that use change and motion in the offensive zone. I don't think we're going to see a massive amount of that, mainly because of his defensive system, which is team defense, control the puck, make sure we're managing the puck, do not make the mistakes in the offensive zone or at the blue lines that lead to us giving up cheap chances going the other way. So that is in many ways similar to what DeBoer want, and kind of opposite of somewhat of what Gallant was wanting. Not that that was a creative offense. It really wasn't a creative offensive system, but he was much more willing to allow the players to make the mistakes and just have the defense bail it out later, however we have to do it. I think that we're going to see a little bit more of possessing the puck coming into the zone. But then I think once we get into the zone, while it's not going to be low to high as often, I do think it's going to be a lot of playing on the outside, firing shots, and then hoping we get the traffic in front or get those opportunities to have players there to pick up the rebounds and put the puck in, which I'm not sure the Golden Knights have at this point. They have plenty of time now if they know that that's the direction that they want to head, that they can find some of those players to put in down the lineup or up the lineup, depending on who it happens to be, to find ways to generate more of those second chance scoring opportunities from high volume offense. And one of the things that really jumped out to me is, I believe it was a 2021 article. It was a 2022 article. Either way, it was a fairly recent article. One of the things that Cassidy had mentioned, or it was kind of speculated, was that they are going to try to ramp up the volume of the shots because the fact that their ability to score had been down. So that's something that was based on finishing. They weren't a high-end finishing team. The Golden Knights are not suddenly going to turn into a high-end finishing team. The only way that that could have potentially happened is if they would have gone someone who wanted to go low volume. That's not seemingly going to be the case. The answer to low finishing rates is higher volume for Bruce Cassidy. That was also the case for Pete DeBoer. I don't think we're going to see a big change there. One piece that I do want to point out for sure is there is one offensive wrinkle that I've been asking for a long time that I do think we'll see under Bruce Cassidy that is very exciting. And that's the 2-3 high formation. Effectively, what it is it's usually the center, but one of the forwards comes out to the blue line and either occupies the point and allows the other defenseman to move into the center, or the center himself moves into the high slot right up next to the blue line, creating 3 players along the blue line in the offensive zone, 2 players down near the goal. Usually you like to have at least one of them in front of the goal, if not both. And then you generate offense by forcing them to come out towards you. Then you can make the decision going whichever way you want to go off of that. The Golden Knights never brought players up front to have that opportunity to bring players all the way out towards the blue line, use that extra player up there and allow themselves to make something happen that way. They really never went that route. I think we are going to see that. Moving back to the other side of the ice, the side of the ice that Bruce Cassidy is very much concerned about, more so than anything, something that Pete DeBoer was more concerned about than anything, something that Barry Trotz is more concerned about than anything, something that I'm now believing the Golden Knights front office believes is the most important thing in the game of hockey, and that is defending. I kind of agree with that and kind of don't. When I watch the Tampa Bay Lightning, it screams, watch this team defend. Look at this team defend. They are incredible. And then I watch them play offense and I watch all this creativity and the way that they generate chances off the rush and they generate it in the offensive zone and their 5-on-5 is amazing and their power play is amazing and all these different things. And I think to myself, well, I guess if the plan is just have decent defense and get incredible goaltending, your offense is going to take care of it itself. I don't think the Golden Knights have that level of offense. So in hiring a defense-first coach, which I do believe Bruce Cassidy is going to be a defense-first coach, they will install their defense and then deal with the offense from there. I don't think it's going to go the other way around. I understand that Boston has been viewed as a much more offensive team than the Golden Knights in the past. It's actually factually inaccurate. The Golden Knights have scored more goals in the time that they've been a franchise than the time that Bruce Cassidy was with Boston. It's not by a lot. It's aided a little bit by the bubble year. I understand that. But either way, no matter how you swing it, that was not an offensive juggernaut in Boston that the Golden Knights were not. They are in many ways similar. That is because Cassidy focuses on defense first. There are differences in how they defend. I don't think it's going to look a ton difference in outside of the fact that I do think they are going to try to exit quicker when they get to the retrieval. I think as opposed to let's make sure we're in the right setup and then we'll flip the puck out from the corners or whatever. And usually there was one pass. He wants quick retrievals. He wants defensemen back. He wants forwards back. He wants opportunities to get the puck to the walls and out as quickly as possible and then use those last back checkers coming in to then create the rush, utilize the defenseman who had got there first to come out of the zone to make things happen with a 5-man unit coming out. Quick, rapid retrievals is the number one item in his defensive system. I do think that that is going to continue when it comes here. I think the Golden Knights are okay in regards to set up for that. Obviously, I expect Theodore to be pretty darn good at it. Probably the best skater on the team, if not the best skater. Well, maybe Eichel is now. Pietrangelo, I think, has always been able to do it, but as time goes on, I think that that's going to diminish. McNabb is better at it than you would think based on his skating, but I don't think that that's going to be a great setup for him. White Cloud, I actually think there's going possibly a little bit of a concern here. He is a good skater, but that's not necessarily what his game relies on. I actually think he's better standing up at the blue line as opposed to worrying about quick retrievals. They want to force you to put the puck in and then get back, and usually they want to use forwards, and by they, I guess I'm now referring to the Golden Knights. The Golden Knights will want to use forwards to stand up along the blue line to help force the puck in, allow the defenseman to go back and get it, and then we use as a unit to get out. I'm not sure that Haig is going to fit all that well into there. I'm not sure that Hutton's going to fit all that well into there. I think Coghlan actually might be pretty decent at it, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with him because he's going to have to go through waivers if they don't keep him on the roster. We'll see. And actually, he kind of fits a lot of what they should be able to do. He becomes one of the players that I think can potentially step forward. The last thing I'll talk about with his system is the neutral zone. It's a lot different than what the Golden Knights are going to be used to. Historically, the Golden Knights have liked to fly through the neutral zone offensively. That is, bring as many players as you can possibly bring. We are going to see some of that, but the Golden Knights were not afraid if the play was taken away to shoot the puck in and go get it. I don't think they're going to see nearly as much of that. Obviously, it's hockey. It's going to happen. You can't turn around and go the other way. You've got to change. We're going to see it. But I think the MO of how they're going to want to enter the zone is going to be a lot more with control, passing across the blue line, carrying across the blue line, setting up that way, and then utilizing that to generate quick chances and hit on the rebounds with that. That, I think, is a huge positive. That is something that will help the offense, will generate more rush chances, will probably take some time for them to figure out. I don't think that that's going to be an immediate change. It's going to immediately pop in and just work right away. It will be interesting to see what the schedule presents because the changes in the defense, the changes in the neutral zone, these different things are going to take time to finally work, and the Golden Knights are going to have a lot of players coming off injury, having not played hockey for a long time. It will be interesting. I do think the preseason is also going to be a little different as we're going to see some of these systems going in. As far as defending when the other team comes through the neutral zone, it is a passive neutral zone. It is different than what the Golden Knights used before. He has normally used what's effectively a 1-2-2. One forechecker goes into the offensive zone. The other two are kind of backing up towards either the red line or as far back as the defensive blue line, forcing the opposing team to put the puck in. It is there to help create turnovers, but normally because of the system, they are not going to have a lot of turnovers in the neutral zone. It does happen because players make dumb decisions constantly, but normally when you play a team that has this type of neutral zone system, you go in understanding we're going to have to put the puck in and beat them with our forecheck. I think teams are going to be willing to do that and going to want to do that against the Golden Knights. I expect that we will see a lot more of that. A couple other things that people have asked me. One is players that this could benefit. I think there are a number of them. I mentioned one earlier. I think Dylan Coghlan actually becomes a better fit for what they're trying to do. I didn't love him in the system that they were set up before. I think Theodore is probably at the front of the line of anybody that's probably going to have more of a benefit. I don't think the 1-1-3 really set Theodore well. I think the willingness or kind of focus on flipping the puck out of the offensive zone as opposed to trying to carry it out yourself, which I do think that they will do a little bit more of, is certainly beneficial in that for Theodore. I would like to see him carry the puck out a la a little bit of McAvoy, and we've seen in the past. That I think is exciting. And then the last guy, I think is probably the biggest one, is going to be Carlson. This is a coach that has had Selke winners on his roster consistently. Like Bergeron wins the damn thing all the time. And I'm not trying to sit here and say that William Karlsson is Bergeron, but I do think that some of the things and some of the systems that have been set up to help Bergeron have success were in part because of Cassidy. I think that you can funnel a Karlsson into that position, and I'm interested to see what does it look like with Karlsson in that role with two highly skilled wingers on his side. I expect them to actually go away from the misfit line to help play this more similar system that Cassidy has played. That being said, I don't know how this is going to look for Eichel. I'm not sure that Eichel necessarily fit great in the DeBoer system. I understand he's an elite player. He's going to get his points, but defensively, I don't think it was ever there. I think going with a coach that's similar in this respect, I'm not sure we're going to see a huge change in how he's defending. I'm interested in seeing what the lineup is going to be. How does he want to roll this out? And who does he want to give all of that defensive responsibility to? The other thing is they were kind of, in many ways, a top line that was able to play both ways. Their best line for the past 3 or 4 years, as far as I can remember going back, has been what they call the perfection line. Pastrnak, Bergeron, and Marchand. That group was their best offensive line. It was their best defensive line. I don't think the Golden Knights are going to be able to have a setup where they have that. I guess it's possible that you could potentially go with a Karlsson in the middle, Stone on the right, and then whoever happens to be on the left, whether it's Pacioretty, if it's Marchessault, whoever it happens to be, I guess it's possible that that can be your best offensive and defensive line, but Eichel's going to have to be on a line somewhere else that's probably going to be better offensively. It'll be interesting to see now that he has to have a little bit more of a balanced top six, what it's going to look like. And then historically, the depth of Boston has been really good. The depth of the Golden Knights is not going to be very good. It looks okay right now. Give it time. They will have to get under the salary cap. They will have to sign the RFAs. They will have to figure out what they're going to do with Smith. It is going to cost a lot of assets to put themselves in a position where they get back under the salary cap. Most of that is going to come on damaging their depth. When they have lesser depth, I'm not sure what it's going to look like. One thing I do like, and I have read about historically what Cassidy likes to do, he does alter the system for how they're going to play when they have lesser players on the ice. Like if you get a Pietrangelo out there with a fourth line, he's not going to force Pietrangelo to carry the puck in the same way that he would if he were playing with an Eichel, with a Stone, with a Karlsson, with a Marchessault. That is important. I think that that's going to have to continue coming through here. The last thing I want to talk about before I get out of here is kind of how this all came about. It's a little concerning to me, to be completely honest. Like, I don't love the process that we went through solely because of where we landed on. So what I mean by that is if you go through just how we got to where we've gotten to today, you have season ends horribly, out of the playoffs, disaster. Everyone kind of reconvenes right there in the front or in the offices in City National, and we all walk away with no resolution at all. Everyone's kind of just making excuses for what went down. We're blaming it on the injuries. We're blaming it on too much hockey. We're blaming it on COVID, whatever it happens to be. There's not a lot of direction of we're taking ownership towards what has gone wrong here. Things went south. Why? Out of our control, not our fault. That's kind of how it felt like from the GM, from the coach, from a lot of the players. Then we had the owner step out and say, I'm going to step in a little bit more. I'm going to be more involved. I want to be my voice to be heard a little bit more. There are some things I didn't like that had happened in the past. We're going to make changes that I'm going to be involved in. That, I think, ends up leading to the firing of DeBoer. However, if they were firing DeBoer, you would have hoped there was a plan in place of which direction they were going to go after him. When they fired Pete DeBoer, it was not clear at all. And in fact, I would make the argument that even if they had had a conversation with Bruce Cassidy and or Bruce Cassidy's agent, that he would have told you, I'm not getting fired. So the plan was clearly not Bruce Cassidy. That doesn't mean that they've gotten a bad candidate. I don't think that's the case at all. And in many ways, they probably hired the best, if not either the best or the second best available candidate out there. So I'm not trying to say that that's a bad thing at all. But what I am trying to say is that when you fire a top 10 coach, you usually want to have a plan of what direction you're going in. Our thought was always, Trotz is available, let's go down that path. I think they might have actually wanted to go down that path. The last time we were in this situation, which is not the last coach hire, it's actually the first coach hire, there was another coach the Golden Knights had their eyes on. If you go back all the way 6 years back now to the offseason prior to the expansion draft, when Gerard Gallant had gotten fired from Florida, that was somewhere along the lines of November. The Golden Knights first reached out to him late in November. They then reached out to him again in December, and then they didn't tell him much of anything for a 4-month period between December, January-ish, and April when he was eventually hired. He clearly was not the first choice. The first choice, we believe, was John Cooper. This is information that we have from a long time ago. Whether or not this matters anymore, I don't know. Here's the way I'm presenting it. I think there was a chance the Golden Knights thought, and if we go back, that was actually the Tampa team that had a very similar season to the Golden Knights season this year, where they're all banged up, they never got it figured out, kept losing to shitty teams, ended up missing the playoffs. That team hung on to John Cooper. It was pretty quickly after it was clear that they were hanging on to John Cooper that the Golden Knights were going in Gallant's direction. When that happened, I actually specifically asked the question at the press conference, why did it take so long? What was the wait? If this is clearly the guy, why didn't you just go ahead and hire him? And the answer was your classic, punt, BS, going through the process, all that crap. It was now clear, and I think it remains clear, Gerard Gallant was not supposed to be the guy that was going to win the Stanley Cup for the Golden Knights. I think it was probably supposed to be John Cooper. Then when that became clear that they're never getting him, and they actually could have potentially had a shot had they fired him after that season, and had they fired him in after season 2 when they lost to Columbus, I think the Golden Knights immediately canned Gallant and grabbed Cooper, and maybe we're talking about something different here. But the last time, they had a clear plan. DeBoer's available. We're going to fire Gallant. We're going straight to DeBoer. We view that as a clear upgrade. This time it was, we can't have him anymore. We're going to just figure out what's best from here, unless the plan was Trotz. It concerns me a little bit to think of the idea that they fired a coach who was a top 10 coach and then landed on a top 10 coach that was not available at the time. Clearly, this was not the plan. The plan was not DeBoer to Cassidy. And now I still ask the question, did they get their first choice? We will probably never know that. We will probably never know that back in the day. I think the information tells us a lot stronger that way. I think we could potentially get more information, potentially from maybe we get more information on Quenneville. They say, well, he was never going to be an option and the Golden Knights wanted him. I don't know. Maybe Trotz comes out and says, I was always going to Winnipeg. I wanted to go to Winnipeg and they kind of got taken for a ride there. We may not know. All I'm saying is the fact that there wasn't really a clear hashed out plan of how are we getting better here, and you end up with a coach 8 days after he's fired when you had fired your coach prior to him getting fired. It's a little bit of fly by the seat of your pants, like we feel like they've done a lot of in the past. And in many ways, it still continues my question of, do they have a path to win the Stanley Cup? Do they understand what the path is to get to the Stanley Cup? Or are they simply saying, we're just going to keep trying to get 1 or 2 or 3% better at every single pass, and eventually, hopefully, we have a high enough percentage that we win the cup? I feel like that's how the team has been operated, as opposed to something that we've seen from other organizations, Detroit probably being the clearest one of all at the moment, of having a very clear path of what they want to do going forward. Actually, New York's a good example of it as well. They put out that letter, said that they were basically punting on a season, we're restarting. They've followed their path. they've gone the route, and now they were 2 wins away from the Cup final with a team that was a bunch under the salary cap. So that's kind of a concern I guess I have. It leads down a same path that we've had before. But again, the biggest thing that I think you could take out of all of this is the Golden Knights just got a great coach. Like, there was definitely a concern, at least for me, and I'm not sure that everybody shared it, but there was a concern for me that someone had to take the fall at the end of this season, and they played it, and they put it all on DeBoer. And my thought was, well, I'm not sure you're getting a coach better than him. I don't think this is a significant downgrade in any way. I don't think it's a significant upgrade. Is that a thing? Yeah, upgrade. I don't know what that word didn't sound like a word to me. I don't think it's a huge upgrade, but they didn't get worse, and they could have gotten this much better. Either way, you're looking at a situation where they're definitely not going down some crazy, risky path that could have potentially blown up in their faces. That's probably not going to be the case. I think it's going to be clear. Golden Knights are probably going to have no problem getting into the postseason next year, and then we'll ask the question that we've asked historically: do we have the guy that can actually get them over the top? Do we have the roster that can get them over the top? I can't scream yes at the moment. Do I think it's a good hire? Yes. Do I think this is the hire that changes this franchise into suddenly being a Stanley Cup winner? No. But there is time to make changes. There are options to make changes with the roster. There are probably more coming now that they have this situation. They certainly hired themselves a great coach. For the 3rd time in 6 years, the Golden Knights have a top 10 coach in the NHL. That is a massive positive. The question mark now becomes, can the roster be good enough to deal with the fact that you don't have the number 1 coach in the NHL? And look at what it's taken the number 1 coach in the NHL to have to get to the mountaintop. It's taken a massively awesome roster. I don't think the Golden Knights have that at this moment. So they're probably more in the mix of some of these other teams that have won without the absolute best coach. You probably have to have a top 10 coach. The Golden Knights now have that again. I'm excited about that. That's all I've got for today. We're going to do a podcast probably tomorrow or Thursday. We'll see when the press conference is. We'll get more information from Cassidy. But all in all, I mean, there's no reason not to be excited about it. Like, I don't think it's franchise altering. I don't think you can, look at this as a completely new situation that the Golden Knights are in, that all of a sudden all of the issues that were there in the past have now disappeared and we're down some completely new road. That's not what we've got, but we are still in a window where they have a good chance to be in the mix to win the Stanley Cup. Things fall their way. It can absolutely happen. The window is still wide open. They were able to replace a good coach with another good coach. That has to be viewed as a positive. That's it for me today. Good night, everybody. Go.